Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Sir Spam28 here bringing you some World of Warships map tactics overview. This is going to be for the New Dawn map, and the way that I'm going to go about this, given that there is no custom game ability for me to load up any specific map that I want with no interference and just drive around and show you various things, is when I get a match with a map that I haven't done yet, I'm just going to press that M button, bring up the tactical overview, take a screenshot of it, and then import it into Paint, and then just kind of go over the general tactics using Paint to draw what I'm talking about, and hopefully just give you some visual illustration and visual reinforcement of the types of things that I'm talking about, so you just don't have to stare at a static image listening to me go on and on. So, without further ado, this is a standard battle on the New Dawn map, but we will be covering all three game types for each map, no matter what's actually displayed. New Dawn, general characteristics of the map, it's very small and it's very tight. What I mean by tight is that it's got a lot of terrain features in a pretty limited area. The map is small to begin with, and then it goes ahead and chokes the middle of the map up with lots and lots of islands, which means that this map just feels a bit claustrophobic, especially if you're in something like a battleship. If you've played a battleship on this map, you probably know what I mean. It just feels, you know, it's not ocean. There's not the really big open areas that you can sail around in and sail in a straight line for 10-15 minutes without hitting anything. It's very small, it's very tight, it's very claustrophobic, which all in all leads us to being a pretty destroyer-friendly map. I would say that this map favors destroyers and light cruisers over any other ship type, especially destroyers. The other main feature of this map is just the makeup of these islands. There's quite a few what I would call standard islands, being the volcanic type islands with the big peaks, like this island here, and this island here, and this one over here, and this one down here. However, most of the smaller islands on this map are very, very flat indeed. So these small islands here are primarily what I'm talking about, and even some of the larger islands like this one and this one down here, and the majority of this one is pretty flat, and this one's pretty flat over here, this little guy down here. These islands are very flat, they're very low profile, which means that in order for them to be effective hardcover for your ship, unless you're in a destroyer who's also very low profile, you have to get your hull right up to these islands. You can stay even if you're just a couple of kilometers off the shore of these islands, where it's preventing you from shooting, over them effectively, you can still be taking arcing fire that's coming right over the top of these low islands and plunging right into your ship. So that's something to keep in mind. The effective cover on this map for a lot of the islands is only effective if you're a very low profile ship or if you're very close to them. But being very close to them means that you're probably in a prime position to have lots of torpedoes shot in your direction. So, getting on to general tactics. On a standard battle where the spawns and the flags are the same, if you're spawning in the north as I was in this game, what you're probably going to want to do is have kind of two main forces. Your battleships and your cruisers are probably going to want to split depending on where they spawn. So in this example, this battleship and this cruiser are probably going to want to go this direction here, either through this channel, or if they want to take the wide route, go this way. And then these guys up here would want to be taking kind of a flanking route over here. Let your destroyers fight it out in the middle. If you're in a battleship especially, you don't want to be in this area. There's just way too much hard cover for light cruisers with torpedoes or destroyers to be able to pop out and take shots at you. Now, if you're on the south, it's going to be kind of the same deal. You're going to want to go ahead and go this way and go this way and fight it out. Get to these opener areas on both sides, like this square here, or this kind of square over here, and even back here if you don't want to be aggressive, or back here if you don't want to be aggressive. That provides you ample opportunity to A, see anything that's coming at you, and B, ample room to maneuver to dodge both torpedoes from destroyers and planes, and dodge incoming shells. Again, destroyers, you can kind of have a choice. You can either shade to the inside of your force on either side, take a little bit of a tighter path and look to see if anything's trying to kind of do an inside around flank and take advantage of the fact that if it's a bigger ship, they're going to be passing lots of islands to allow you to get opportunities. Or you can kind of do the inside out flank and just go straight across and see if you can't catch any lollygaggers behind, or if you're fast enough, based on where there's these people are spawning about 2 diagonal squares away, so you can kind of juxtapose that 2 diagonal squares away. You can assume the enemy is going to be spawning back here. You in a destroyer, like say this guy, for example, he should be able to get and set up here by the same time that a battleship that was spawning back here gets to around here. If this battleship is dumb enough to either go through this narrow or go around this island or start coming around this island, this destroyer is in a prime position to set up where he needs to get effective torpedoes off. So you can kind of come into the middle and see if any big ships are not playing soundly and are going through narrow trouble areas and take advantage of that. Or more than likely, if you're especially in the Grem or in a US destroyer, this is a very good tactic to intercept the enemy destroyers that are kind of coming and setting up in the same area to ambush your team. Those 2 ships are the Grem and the US destroyers. The guns are very good, so they allow you to effectively engage Japanese destroyers especially, and have more than even chance or an even chance with any other destroyer. And if you do find capital ships, these choke points make tasty areas for your short range but usually pretty fast torpedoes. That allows you to actually get torpedoes on a target. Now, aircraft carriers, generally speaking, you can want to hang out towards the back. If you're spawning north, you probably want to shade this direction, just because it gives you the most room. And if you're spawning south, you probably want to shade this direction, again, just because it gives you the most room, and your forces will probably be going this way and then cutting narrowly this way. As an aircraft carrier, it's kind of like castling a king in chess. Wait for your team to deploy, see which side of the map they're deploying the strongest on, and then castle in a way to that side. So if the bulk of your forces, say, from this, let's say all of these ships decide that they want to go this way and just these 2 ships go this way. If I was in an aircraft carrier that say spawned right here, I would definitely flex this direction. On the other hand, if say all of these ships went this way and these 2 ships went this way, then the same aircraft carrier, I would just shade, to this side. Again, it's kind of the same. You want to castle to the strong side of the map, kind of using some chess tactics there in an aircraft carrier just to stay safe. This map is so small that you really don't have to worry about sticking on the heels of your main force as they go, unless they're really crushing a flank. Then you can, obviously move up on the outskirts of that flank to stick with the team. But in general, the map is so small that the flight time is going to be pretty short, and at least at the beginning stages of the game, if you start getting past, this line or this line, you're going to get spotted out being an aircraft carrier, which means that you're probably going to get under fire and you're not going to be able to effectively do your job, which is providing support to the rest of your team, because you're going to be worried about saving your own bacon. So you want to stick to the rear parts of the map. Again, unless everything, all the tactics I talk about in all of my videos are, of course, conditional. If when I'm playing a game and talking about tactics, it's usually pretty specific to the scenario that I'm in that game. And with the map overview tactics, again, this is just in general. This is what I think would be, would work the majority of the time. But you may find yourself in a situation which you have to do the complete opposite of what I'm saying here, and that could be the best decision you can make at the time. It's all situational, but it's good to just start thinking about the general and start thinking about theory and tactics, and that way it kind of gets your brain, practice into thinking about theory and tactics. So when you're actually playing, your brain is kind of doing that subconsciously, and you can make the soundest tactical choice for any given situation you find yourself in. So let's talk about some of the other game modes. I forget the name of the other game mode, but it's the one with the single cap point that's going to be in the center. This is going to play out pretty much the same way as a standard battle. You might want to shade on the wings, just take the narrow routes, you know, in case they, you know, steam and start to fast cap, you actually have effective fire from kind of both flanks. Again, this is a very flat island, so it doesn't block shells from if you were this far out and the enemy was in the cap. But other than that, it plays out pretty similar to a standard battle. If you go the wide route and they decide that they want to steam straight in and fast cap, this map is small enough that there's a chance that you're able to get in and get effective shots in on time. But at the same time, there's a chance that they fast cap before you can really react. And there's not a lot you can do about that besides, you know, if you're in a destroyer on this map, I would really recommend going to the center area. Just to, again, prevent that, maybe not by yourself, but you can definitely scout it out for your team and provide that visual information if you're not going to be able to single-handedly sink all their ships they're sending in. And even if they're just sending, again, a couple of ships through these slots, you can either intercept destroyers or get good torpedoes in. But if you don't have a destroyer in this area and you all are going on the wings and they do fast cap, there's not going to be a lot you can do about it. But I wouldn't worry about it too much. Hey, it can happen, but no one's going to have a great game. Even the winning team, they're not going to have a great game if they decide they want to zoom in and just fast cap. You know, maybe one or two of them walk away with more than 1,000 experience, but the vast majority of them are probably actually going to be under 500 experience. So all you can do is just go back to your dock, jump into another game, and hope for a better result. Because if the vast majority of the enemy team is determined that no one's going to have a good game, then no one's going to have a good game, including them. And you don't have to worry about that too much. Now, on to Domination, which is honestly the game mode that I get the most for some reason. So we'll go ahead and draw the points. They're not going to be exact, obviously, but just in general, A point's going to be down here, B point is going to be in the center, and C point's going to be up here. And we can kind of label these, I guess, if I can actually draw. There we go. So spawning north, what you're more than likely going to want to do, the spawn on Domination for north tends to shift a little bit towards the middle here, and same for south. It tends to be instead of being kind of diagonal on the diagonal, it's going to be you know, the spawn is going to be like this box here, and then for the south it's going to be like this box here. So for the north, what you probably want to do is the destroyers and cruisers that are on this like 3/4 of the spawn area probably want to head to sea to start to fast cap that. And then the rest of your forces, if you have destroyers that want to, you know, that are on this side, I would say this, I should say third. The destroyers on this side probably want to go this direction and scout this information out over here. And then your bulk of the forces, so all the ships that are in the middle here, and then the heavier ships that aren't destroyers from this side over here, you are probably going to want to steam into B. And what you're probably going to want to do is steam straight down and get in this position here, kind of oriented along this axis here. And what that allows you to do is really be capping B, and then if they're in A, you can get shots over these islands, or you can, you know, position yourself that this big island provides you some hard cover. And if the south team decides they don't want to, you know, get into A and they don't want to send a big force to B, and they're sending a big force to C, you can really get effective fire across at them as they're steaming into C, and as your vanguard force should have already had their T crossed and firing down into them as well, which allows you to decimate this area. So on the south, it's going to be kind of the same thing as I remove all of this information. Same kind of thing with the thirds. You probably want your vanguard force to fast cap into A, and then your destroyers over here to kind of scout out this area, and then the vast majority of your force again to get into B and start looking towards this area here or this line here to shoot in between these islands. It's a little bit harder just because there's more islands on the south for this team, but you have, I think, an easier time holding A just because there are islands here that their destroyers and the vanguard force can then maneuver and set up along these islands like this. And if anything comes around close to these, you can get really good torpedoes off. And that's another thing with the Vanguard forces, just kind of retreating a little bit. Once you cap A, you probably want to continue along this flank and see if you can't get the flank around, depending on how your team's doing. But if you need to, you can always flex back into B area. And kind of the same thing on the C side, the Vanguard force that captures that. If the enemy team is only sending a little force, you can defeat it as you're flanking and look for the flank, or if you need to, you can flex back to B. Again, this is such a small map that it's pretty easy to get where you need to go, and that's no big deal. As far as positioning goes, oh, we kind of took away our C there. I would say if you are in a cruiser, you probably want to stay out of this circle. This area is just way too tight, and there's way too many islands. It's too hard to enter and exit this area as a cruiser, even without getting torpedoed by a destroyer. So unless you've scouted ahead with your scout planes, if you have it, if your aircraft carrier is sent planes in front of you, or if you have another destroyer that's already in this area scouting it out, then you can enter, but still enter with caution. But I wouldn't be the first one in this area. As a battleship, I would extend that circle a little bit larger and try to stay on the outside of here, which still, given good positions, will allow you to put effective fire in towards B and towards A and towards C if you need to. And again, like we covered before, aircraft carriers, same thing. See which side your team is shading on. If you're going for C and B from north spawn, then obviously you want to shade this way. If the south spawn's being typical and going for A and B, then obviously you want to shade this way as well. But again, keep in mind which side has a stronger deployment and kind of castle to that direction. Destroyers, feel free to go anywhere. Like I said before, this is your map. Live it up. Get those good torpedoes runs in if anyone's being dumb, especially if you see ships being in problem areas, which I would define as, close to big islands like this or close to big islands like this, or if they're coming through narrows, obviously, like here and here and here, and even this island here. The last thing that I want to talk about is with the battleships. So we'll go ahead and redraw kind of that circle of where they want to stay out of. But another thing in a battleship that you want to keep in mind is your positioning relative to the hardcover and relative to what's going to be going on in the game. So let's take a couple of examples here. Let's say that you spawn down here and you're steaming towards C for whatever reason. You don't want to cap B, or maybe, like I said, maybe the team's just not following your advice or not following the tactics as per usual, and they're all steaming towards C. So you steam on the outside and you get yourself behind this island. Let's say that you're right here now, this big purple dot. Well, let's take a look at your firing arc from this position. Here to here. Not a whole lot of the map, is it? So that is not a good position to be in a battleship. You can really only effectively engage things that are out over here, because obviously nothing's going to be behind you at this stage in the game. And even if you see something that's shooting down the slot and starting to flank, you can't do anything about it because you've put this big-ass island in between you and where you need to fire. If they're pressuring A or fast-capping A, or they get a big force into B, you can't do a damn thing about it either because, again, you've put this big island in between you and the area that you need to be shooting at. Now, let's take an example on this side over here. If you're an A, let's say this battleship travels down and gets himself behind this island. This island is flat, but it still has peaks on it that are going to prevent him, if he's this close to it, from shooting anywhere except here and here. So again, same thing. You've really only given yourself maybe 10% or less of the map to shoot at. So you're not putting yourself in an anti-advantageous position. So what you want to be doing in a battleship is making sure that you can still stick to the outside, but make sure you're in open water. Let's say you're like right here, You can, obviously, you're in C, so you're defending that. But you can shoot almost anywhere. You can shoot across these small islands into B. You can probably even shoot, through some of these gaps, or the range is going to be big enough that if you have the reach, you can shoot across into A as well. Same thing with kind of over here on this side. Rather than being behind this island, position yourself in the open water here. Now, this island's still going to get in the way for you to hit C, but that's just an unfortunate feature of the map. But from here, you can still, start to get shots into B, and you can get shots over this island if you're far enough back into A as well. Don't put yourself next to really, really big islands that take away your firing arcs if you don't need to. That's something to keep in mind on every map, because I see it a lot. I see it a ton, that battleships will start steaming as a flanking force, but unfortunately that flanking route that they're taking puts them behind a big-ass island that prevents them from shooting for minutes, which means that a lot of the times their team then loses the game because the enemy battleships are putting effective fire in while they are not. So keep that in mind. Keep aware. Make sure that you're not steaming into a bad position, because if you are coming this direction, let's say you're steaming in this direction, and the enemy team is, you note, because your destroyer that unfortunately just got sunk has scouted out that the enemy is making a strong push towards B. You probably want to stop steaming in this direction. You probably want to either turn around to get yourself shooting at B, or just split off and keep yourself in this open channel where you can shoot towards B. Because if you keep steaming in this direction and get behind this island, suddenly you can't shoot at B anymore, and it's going to be a long time for you to turn around and get out where you can start shooting, or to keep going and get out to where you can start shooting. And by that time, hey, maybe they threw up a smoke screen, maybe they already capped it and have moved on and moved out, and you're unable to influence that engagement. So that's not something you want to be doing. I am talking a lot about battleships because I do think that battleships are the class that takes the most foresight and tactical awareness to play, because they are so slow. You do really have to be thinking as far as your positioning and the enemy positioning at least 3 or 4 minutes ahead of time to make sure that you're always going to be in an area where you can influence the points on the map that need to be influenced. So I think that's going to be it for the New Dawn overview. Again, just a general recap. This is a destroyer's playground. Destroyers live it up, look for those enemies that are being tactically unsound and sailing their big ship through narrow passages. Big ships, you probably want to stick to the outside area of the map, out of that purple circle that you can see, just to keep yourself free from those destroyers. Aircraft carriers, definitely stick to the rear. This is a small enough map that if you start moving up before it's really safe, you're going to get spotted out. And it's so small that the flight time's not really going to be affected by you sticking towards the rear on this map at all. And with that, we're going to come to a close. Let me know if this format is something that you like, something that you want to see more of. This is the best way that I've come up with how to do these map tactics videos. If you have a better suggestion, please let me know in the comments below, and let me know if you have a specific map that you want to see talked about before the others, and I'll try to get that done first. Or if you have any general comments or concerns or criticisms of anything that I've covered in this video, again, let me know. This is a collaborative process, and I am by no means the best player with all the answers or the most sound strategies. Just things that I have tried to implement that are working well for me, and that have me at a pretty healthy place with regards to my average experience and my win rate in the game. Something that I like to do, and I'm having a pretty good time. And I seem to have more good games than bad games, and I would like that for you all too. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.